Okay, we are recording. So this I'm going to start out with just the easiest one that hopefully we can somewhat agree on. Um, the or we could agree that it's an easier one. Um, Frank brought up a really good point on the mailing list, and the point was, hey, we're having two meetings, and it doesn't seem like that's a good idea. Having one meeting so that we could all talk about, so we could have this group conversation without having this disconnected conversation would make better sense. Did I capture that right, Frank?
Oh, exactly.
Yeah. That I won't lie, it won't be as pleasant if we do that. We already do that with the Apache Cassandra committer or a contributor meeting, which kind of sits in the middle of 12 time zones, and that's what makes it difficult. So it's usually run around, we rotate it. It does 10, 11, 12, and 1 p.m. Pacific time, which makes it on some of the rotations, it's great for people like New Zealand and Australia and Japan. And some days it isn't because they have to get up early. And then for everyone in Europe, it gets progressively later and then it goes back. So I mean that's something that it isn't the best, of course. It's not tremendously late. It's not like 1 o'clock in the morning or 3 a.m. But I just wanted to put that out real quick. Maybe get the group's impression. Two meetings and reasonable time zones, or one meeting and later for everyone on this call.
For me, it's I'd rather one meeting later, obviously, because I prefer it. So I don't know about the others.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask this: does anyone no? I'd rather have it. I can only attend it if it's in the middle of the day. I think what I can do then is, for the next, what I can do is propose the change on the dev mailing list. If there's any dissent, that's a good place to air it, because you can type. But more importantly, we'll give it a shot. If there's no strong dissent, then I will set up a new schedule and we'll give it a try. And then everyone can feel it and say, this is terrible. We'll never do this again, ever. What I really want to make sure I'm optimizing for is participation. If it's a call that only has the same group of people and they're all in the US, that's not going to help. That's not what we want, right? There's a lot of great efforts going on in most of the world, and we want to be able to cover that. But I'm willing to go down that path and try to schedule it. Okay. All right. The next topic I have here is we've published a Ben Bromhead and I, as promised, we've worked through our first iteration of a CEP, a Cassandra Enhancement Process proposal, or Cassandra Enhancement proposal. I'm going to share my screen and walk through it real quick. Except I need to find it. There we go, Fireworks. This here, I'll copy this so everyone can see it. I'm going to put this in the chat. Can I do this chat right now? Chat. So you can follow along on the chat. All right, so this is in the Cassandra C Wiki, and what Ben and I tried to do is capture just the basics of the conversations that have already been had and create some framework here. What is missing right now is a really big graphic that I put in there. If I don't know why it's not showing up on my screen, Firefox decided to die. You know, it's probably the Rust code. Oh, did I say that? The let me just walk through what we're doing. So CP has a certain format. There's a template that the PMC has created. So we're following that format. Of course, you know, the status of this right now is this is brand new. So we're doing the discussions. There's no we're going to be doing this on the dev list for now, and inside the Cassandra Jira for now. And of course, these are good discussion points. Like, is that where we want to have all these discussions? And I think this is a great opportunity. If you saw some of the traffic on the mailing list yesterday, there was some discussion about like, oh, how do we handle sub projects? So we may be forcing some new thinking in the project. So obviously this is, we just have one motivation, but I think this could probably get beefed up a little bit, but it's just how to, you know, make it easy to run Cassandra on Kubernetes. That's what we're trying to do. We're primarily looking to make the lives of people who are running Cassandra better. I love Frank's point of view there, where it's like, I don't want the ops team come in and ask me how to use Cassandra. I'd love for it to just be working. You know, that if it's hands off, that's a success. And there are developers out there too, especially with CI/CD pipelines that are that would be involved in that. I really wish we had. How about here? I'll just do this. I took this this graphic off of the operator SDK, and thanks to a lot of you that brought this up. Oh, GitHub is having issues. It looks like interesting.
And issues a lot of yesterday also.
Oh, GitHub, you so silly. It's like it's not like half of the world runs their code out of GitHub. So the goals for this is around trying to frame it around this maturity scale that the operator SDK works from, and it links really nicely with other things. Like if you go to operatorhub.io, whenever you look at an operator, it says what level it is, level 1, 2, 3, or 4, or 5. And let's see if I can just bring it up this way. Okay. There it is. There's the graphic that I was trying to do. Is the graphic working outside of my browser? Is anyone looking at the page right now? Okay. Yeah. All right. So my browser just barfed. That's great. Anyway, so the five levels. The level 1 is just the basic, like install. And yesterday this came up, and I think this is also for today. Is one of the goals I think that we should have is defining what in a Cassandra what in the world Cassandra world means level 1, like automated application provisioning, configuration management. That's very basic for Kubernetes, but what does that mean for Cassandra? Seamless upgrades also has a very different. It's very opinionated in Cassandra world. A level 3 full life cycle. You know, what does that mean for Cassandra? And you know, backup, failure recovery, full life cycle. I think there's, you know, that seems pretty reasonable, but going back to this EP, we think, you know, really what we're trying to do is lower that impedance. Like, don't make Cassandra and Kubernetes keep them from fighting each other, because there is some big differences between those. And really try to achieve a level 3 operator compliance. And the level 3 is this full life cycle, getting to that point. Level 4 and level 5 sound absolutely fantastic, but I think from a scoping of just what and looking what's already out there, level 3 would be a really cool thing to have. And with the level 4, I think we can say that we should plan for that. Like that should be a part of we shouldn't get in the way of doing that. But that shouldn't be the goal, is to ship something with full level 4 compliance. And autopilot, that gets into the AI ops thing, which is a whole different ball of wax. And we don't want to impede trying to get level 3 done by saying, oh, we're going to make this fully automated setup for Cassandra. There's a lot to do here. However, the horizontal and vertical scaling, the horizontal scaling, that should be in level 1. And that's why I go back to this. We have these different levels in Kubernetes land that we should look at how we propose those from a Cassandra point of view. And maybe this is where this would land, inside where it says goals here. I would like to make sure we define what level 1, level 2, and level 3 look like in a Cassandra world. I'm going to pause right there for a minute. Comments on that section?
Yeah, just so in the meeting last night, there were some discussion around, I think, just to reiterate, as far as configuration management, it quickly got into some questions about what exactly that entails, because obviously with Cassandra, that can get non-trivial fast. We're talking about setting up, configuring encryption, authentication, authorization. It's more than just templating variables in the YAML, for example. So I think it helps to probably try to narrow in on that, and to have more specificity around that. And I think, like you said, I think the model, the diagram is great, but I think it's going to be a bit more complicated, for Cassandra.
Isn't it always? I think that's why we're all here, because Cassandra, complicated. Great point, John. And I think that'll probably be the hardest part of defining, doing the definition of the CEP is, and then this is what I keep hearing from people, is like defining what these levels actually are with respect to Cassandra. Is it full life cycle of a YAML file? It's going to be I think there's a lot of great opinions out there. If we could solve it, I think this would be a huge thing for our community. Any other comments?
A couple other things in that vein that have come up. I know Cassandra specific are repair and backup and restore. And since I did see that we have a few of the D2 IQ guys on here, do you want to quickly talk about what you guys are doing for backup and restore?
Well, I'm currently working on that. I'm integrating Medusa at the moment, looking into that. It's a little bit tricky because it's not meant to be running in Kubernetes as well, but it works, at least back up to S3 and restore. Yeah, it's a bit tricky working around that stuff, but yeah, it kind of works at the moment. Could be improved a lot, but and yeah, actually looking into the whole encrypted cluster backup restore stuff. Medusa doesn't support that yet, but there are PRs out there, so there's ongoing work.
Yeah, I think another thing that I hope would not be off limits too is making Cassandra better in a Kubernetes type environment. So if it means bringing things like repair or server side backup and restore closer to the server, I think that's also something that as a project we could explore.
Yeah, I would add to Andreas, like at DDIQ, we are like basically building Cassandra on like Kudo. That's like kind of a universal declarative operator. And where we have a kind of a approach that is called plans. So basically it's kind of imagine like a CRD where we can execute some kind of operator side operations. So for us, for example, repair, replace, and like backup are kind of plans. And we saw issues, for example, not just for backup and restore, but also for node replace, right? So it's easy to do node replace when you're using like some kind of EBS storage. But imagine like we have customers who are interested in local storage also. So if that is gone, like a operator intervention is necessary on part of Kubernetes. I think like that is also like to be work seamless. We want to make it part of our operation life cycle where, let's say, Kubernetes node is gone, we are able to recover it, repair it, and back it at again with the working Cassandra cluster. So yeah, like if somebody is interested into like that, like we can go more deeper into that, but basically it's come from the idea, from the plans where we have a state to come, let's say repair, backup, or restore, or replace, and we try to make it achieve. Some of these operations are like already like in, we call it like alpha stage because we are still not GA, and we are like still testing with it, with the replace and repair and backup restore. But yeah, like we are looking forward for also for Cassandra to be more flexible, because the replace, for example, is not ideal for Kubernetes kind of environment, for example.
Yeah, these all right, so these are all, I think these are probably where we're going to be talking the most. Like these are just everyday things that happen with Cassandra, right? And I don't think anybody wants to spend their whole day administering a Cassandra cluster. Although some people do, that's fine. But Kubernetes, it should, I mean, if we're going to do this work, we should have a place at the end where it's just easy to run a Cassandra cluster because we run it on Kubernetes. Just moving along, just keeping track of time. The non-goals, and these are like just trying to get outside of, like, let's make sure we set some boundaries here. Removing the need for any Cassandra administration. I don't think that's a worthy goal, and I think that we could all agree that that's an ideal that would be wonderful, but we're not going to try to do that. You're still going to need to administer your Cassandra cluster at some level. Also providing like a serverless facade for Cassandra. That's also not a goal. It'd be easy to go down that rabbit hole, but no. And then there is a concept, this whole thing around supplying official Docker images. Again, another discussion on the mailing list, which is sure to get heated. Basically, it's really difficult to say that one Docker image fits everyone's control plane, and trying to turn this into, and we will also deploy a official Cassandra Docker image. It seems out of scope for this project. It may be related, but it's out of scope. What I would mention here is that this CWiki is available. Anyone can work with this. You can edit it. You can go in. And I'll put these in some notes so you see how to do this. But if you're interested in adding things, and one of the sections I'm going to add on here after we're done with these meetings is a section for defining Cassandra level, what Cassandra level 1, Cassandra level 2, and Cassandra level 3 are. We should try to enumerate those as best we can. And those are, I think that's where most of the debate's going to be. Like, where do these fit? And so everyone has the ability to, you create an account on Confluence. It's easy and free, but you would just need to let one of us, like myself or Ben, know that you want to have edit, and it's really easy to do. Actually, anybody with a there's a lot of us. If you go on the dev list or on the dev Slack, you can ask like, "Hey, can I get edit rights on the Confluence?" This is wide open. If you want it, then it's not that big of a deal. But that way you can go into this doc and add your parts if you want. There's also a comment section below it. If you just want to throw comments out there before we make any changes to the doc, that's fine too. And I'll just keep I have it, I'm watching it right now. So anytime you make a comment or a change, I'll see it. So this is the proposed change here for the Cassandra project. This is going to be a new sub-project for Cassandra. And that, I think that's something that the PMC is going to have to sort out. It will be interesting because there's a lot of different sub-projects out there, including the sidecar. The new public interfaces, and this is regarding Cassandra, but there are some. I think this is going to be interesting as we go along. Like what needs to be exposed. For instance, any of the pluggable components, like authorization triggers, those will need public interfaces for like CRDs and that sort of thing. Discovery mechanisms like etcd. Specifically, we mentioned configuration quite a bit here. Like a seed provider was one that came up a lot. Like where does a seed provider happen? Like, is that because this is in the service discovery for Kubernetes? And what happens if you have to restart your cluster, or when you start up a cluster, how do you specify where your seed node is, or seed nodes are, I should say. And yeah, I mean, I think there's plenty of things to go through here, but we listed the first three that came to mind. Compatibility, targeting, this is Cassandra versions. Targeting Cassandra version 3.x and above, going much further back. And this will be like probably very closely related to what's happening in the sidecar project. And if you don't know anything about the sidecar project, I invite you to go check it out. We should look at that just because the majority of users, as I've found through polling, are running some version of 3.x. And as we move into 4.0, I'm sure we'll have people on 3.x for a long time. The test plan, this is also something that's really kind of top of mind with the project, is making sure that not only do we come up with fancy new ideas, that we test them too. And what I think this is something that was brought up yesterday we had some of the people who are doing the current Cassandra testing right now for the 4.0. If we're trying to show that this official Kubernetes operator is really all that, then we should be using it ourselves. And that operator should be a part of our CI/CD pipeline for the Cassandra project. There are three things out there that could, as we automate the tests, like detest, and there's a fuzz testing tool called Harry, which will be open source soon. And then Fallout, which was just donated by DataStax. All of these have the ability to run in Kubernetes. And if we're thinking about how we set up and tear down clusters to test, that would be very validating if we use the official operator from the Cassandra project. And I would also, I think we would make ourselves angry at some point and fix it. And there was a kind of an open question around, is there an acceptance framework for Kubernetes operators? And we don't, we know that they're on operatorhub.io. They just ask like, what level are you? But we couldn't find anything that says tests us, here's the test for your operator. Does anyone know about that? Is there one?
Is there like a standard operator testing framework?
Yeah, like compliance testing tool.
So we looked a lot for testing with ours, and actually I like the Kudo stuff a lot. As like, I wish we had used that very early on, but I lost that debate, and we ended up rolling our own thing that looks a bit like what Kubernetes itself has. I don't. Yeah, there's not a great standard story for this. I think the built-in Kubernetes end-to-end test is very heavyweight. We thought about doing that. We instead kind of built from the same components. They use some BDD library called Ginkgo.
Right.
We made our own kind of just enough test framework for us.
Okay.
So I can speak a bit for the Kudo. Like we developed it like exactly for testing the operators, and we are using that. And in the last meeting of the operator SDK, they agreed that they are going to start using Kudo testing framework also, the kernel, and we get to present it in the Kubernetes SIG testing also. And they are also like trying to make it part of Kubernetes SIG testing. So what is the good about thing? This is like, like if you guys don't know, you should give it a look, but it's basically about, we'll make sure that we are driving the development of an operator in a Kubernetes native way, right? So if I want to make sure that if Cassandra is deployed and I want to test that it is deployed, I will just look for the Kubernetes objects and not just like look into that a pod that is running and the process that is not exposing. And yeah, the other is like, yeah, it's just without any Go code, it's just declarative way. So it's still in development, and we are actively like trying to make it sure for Kudo Kafka it's already quite complete. But in case if we find out there's something that we want to test for Apache Cassandra operator and we cannot test it, yeah, we can actually develop those features. So it's not like like it's going to be abandoned or something like that. Yeah.
Very good. Very good. Okay. So I'm glad I'm asking. Yeah, that's and if you have any like links, just go ahead and pop them in the chat. I'll copy the chat into our notes as well. So I see you already put one in there. Cool. Well, there is one. Okay, well, I mean, we're at the bottom of the hour, and just keeping our timing in check here. The other request that I had was turn this into an hour meeting if we're going to debate, which I think makes sense. But other comments right now or questions about like what we've created here or things you think should be there?
I had a couple of questions.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I hear you that like we can't expect everyone to use like this exact Docker image. But I don't understand how the project can make something and call it official without a Docker story. It's like, hey, this is the reference. If you need to deviate because you just have to run Oracle Linux or whatever, if you're, I don't know, anything really that has to be deviated, like this is sort of, we can outline as much of a spec as you have to follow, but there should be a good reference implementation of that, right? And if you want to make it easy, like the Docker image is the entry door to easy. Like rolling your own is not something small shops should be trying to do.
No. I think part of this was that it's not the operator's project to come up with an official Docker image. It should be the Cassandra projects, like whatever. Because right now the Docker image that's out there now is being run by the Docker folks. If you go to Docker Hub, the Cassandra, the one that everyone, when you say Docker pull Cassandra,
yeah,
it's from Docker, not from the Apache Cassandra
Yep.
folks. But this is, that should be something that we we address from a project standpoint, not just this little sub project.
So
Yeah, I mean,
I think that raises an interesting. That in itself raises an interesting question, because what about the Cassandra project itself maintaining the image? You know, I've seen plenty of projects where, you know, there may be, you have a Docker, multiple sets of images that are targeted specifically for Kubernetes and then used for Docker outside of Kubernetes. And I think that's a question. I think it's a legitimate question of maybe start out that way, but there may be, are there use cases for a Docker image that would, you know, for outside of Kubernetes, and or use cases specifically within the operator scenarios that the other Dockerwise image would otherwise not be concerned.
Yeah. Yeah, you brought up some good points there. I'm gonna stop my share so we can talk. You brought up some good points about, like, there is not just one, right? There could be a variety for sure, especially when it comes to dev and different things. There's a thread going on the dev list right now, but it may be a good idea to start a different thread on the dev list that isn't, because right now it's kind of mixed into a different thread. And so I'm with you. I'm kind of sad that, you know, that when I go to Docker Hub, that it's not an official Cassandra, like Apache Cassandra project Docker image. And the one that's out there is pretty generic. I mean, it works, right? But is it what we as a project think is the right way to run it?
Yeah, I brought it up just because I've seen every operator work around this, and we did too. And it's silly, and it's not working around the Cassandra build. It's not like the tar GZ should be, that there shouldn't be a debate about that, but it's all the scripting that comes up with your image and the environment. It's all like that first layer you hit when you start Docker, the shell scripting and what environment variables are expected to be. It's just like this idea of, like, what is the API of starting this thing? And so, yeah, I don't need a soapbox anymore, but to me, it's like, it's kind of nonsense to try to have a standard operator if you won't have a standard Docker image. I know what you're saying is, like, someone else will do that, but it's like, but why? They don't know what the operator needs. Like, I maybe there should be one that's easy to drop in for a single node, like futzing around on CQLSH, and the operator should, you know, extend that and set it up as the operator needs. That's fine solution, but I don't know, the current state of things is not
Right.
not so sensible.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, and I think, all right, so I think that's worth debating during this project for sure. And it's probably bringing that topic a little more up in the project. The project has been going along without needing a Docker to worry about it, but I think the time's up, right? Not anymore. All right, is there any other things we should bring forward at this point? All right, so what I hope everyone sees now is, like, we have a framework to start working with. I will send out, I'll have the recordings, I'll put those up into the CWiki, send out an email to the mailing list. But essentially, we're at the point now where we need to do some discussion. And if you're not on the ASF Slack, there's an ASF Slack with a channel for Cassandra Dev. I think a lot of the conversation will happen there until we split away into our own little subgroup, which might happen. I think we're going to get a lot of energy on this from a lot of new folks, which is fantastic. So, yeah. Also, keep an eye out for the schedule. I'm going to change the calendar, the official calendar, so that we have So we have one meeting. We'll see how it goes. And if it doesn't work, then everyone can blame Frank. I'm kidding, Frank. All right, great. Well, thanks again, everyone. And I will see you the next meeting.
Thanks for organizing.